Hello everyone, I hope you're all having a wonderful day today. So this video is going to be a little bit different than my normal ones, and I'm going to try and keep this format for a little while because I saw this really cool video the other day about how standing up, and he said looking down, and I don't like that idea, but I guess that's technically because I'm looking down. As well as like fiddling with something with your hands or doing something with your hands. He was like a chopping board and he was like cutting vegetables, which was actually really cool to watch. But he said doing that with your videos is just better, and he gave a list of reasons. It's not exactly what this video is about, but wanted to let everyone know that's why it looks different. I'm not sitting down in my chair. I also talk with my hands a lot, so this will be kind of helpful. All good writers are supposed to have a cool pen trick, so I'm going to try and figure this out as well. So if you guys have any tips or tricks for this, I'd appreciate that as well. To the main point of what this video is actually going to be about, it's kind of a two-parter. It has to do with this idea of there must have been an initial movement, and from that point of initial movement, every movement afterwards was caused by the previous movements. And I'll explain it a little bit better in a second. And I'm going to rope that into this idea of proximate cause and the chain of causation, right? Because they're kind of similar, and I feel like they really work together. To explain the first part, this idea that everything is always moving and one movement causes another movement. I'm going to use Aristotle's example. He says a stick, but I'm going to use its pen. This stick in of itself doesn't move, right? Right now it's just sitting here. This book back here, I don't know if you can see it, this book right here, it doesn't move. If I use this pen and I move this book, the book moved because the pen moved it. The pen moved because my hand moved it. My hand moved because, my shoulder rotated, so on and so forth, until you go all the way back to this idea of this first movement, right? So I actually learned about this, I want to say from Saint Augustine, but it could be Saint Augustus. They're all very similar to me. I'm not super great with names. Essentially, he was using it in a proof to try and prove that the Christian belief, his Christian belief, and Aristotle's views of logic, they could be like coincided. I'm not going to get super deep into that. That'd be a very, very long video. But he was explaining it and in the Christian way, and Aristotle was explaining it in a similar way, where whatever started this first movement, because you have to assume if everything moves something and there's this chain of movement, it had to have started somewhere. So Aristotle's view is whatever started this movement, that was God, right? And again, we're not going to talk about this too much, because the main point that I want to get there is it actually is very similar to a separate belief that I hold, that everything causes something and everything is caused by something. So every action that I take and everything that happens to me in my world happens because of something. There is no such thing as like pure luck, right? It's not that, it happened to me because it's me and it was just destined to happen. I don't personally believe in that. And this was, to me, a great way of illustrating that belief is if I start walking today and somebody hits me with their car, weird example, but go with me, is it my fault for walking there, or is it the driver's fault for hitting me? And what led me to walk there? What led the driver to drive in that exact speed in that situation, right? And you can really narrow it back. And I actually use that a lot to help me with complicated ideas and situations that I'm not prepared for. If I'm trying to understand something at a deeper level, is I ask, like a child almost, ask why? Like, well, why is it like this? Well, let's break it down. Well, like, let's make it simpler. Like, why? And it actually really helps. It helps me, right? And so I'd very much love you guys to try it. Tell me if it helps you, right? Because when you talk about something really complicated, especially in economics or philosophy or politics or any of these broad things, like economics is a great example of, it's theoretical, right? Like, yes, some things like, demand goes up, so price will go up, demand goes down, price will, like some things like that, or correlational where you can watch it. But that doesn't take into effect all these other things that could make price go up and down. And you know what I mean? It's very, very convoluted when you start looking into every small little detail. So when I'm trying to understand something like inflation, I guess is a good example that we all deal with right now, it helps me to understand, like, okay, well, why would this happen? And I try and follow it back to like what originally started it. I'm going to try and tie this now into this kind of concept that I read in this book I've been really, really enjoying that I totally recommend to everyone. Actually, it's this one right here. It's The Metaphysical Club. Super convoluted, super confusing. I don't pretend to understand the majority of what I read in this book, but it's fun for me. It has to do with a little bit of everything that I'm into. Well, not everything, but what we're talking about. It ends up talking about this idea of a chain of causation and proximate cause and remote cause. And they're talking about it in more of a law setting. What they state, right, is that in trials at times they'll say this directly caused this, right? And if this directly caused this, it makes you guilty or not guilty, depending on how much of an effect they believed your action had in this action. Again, I'm sorry, that might be convoluted. I don't currently have a better example for that I can think of off the top of my head. But long story short, like if I did something and that caused this person to do something illegal, am I at fault because it caused him to do something illegal, or he's still the one that did something illegal? And they're talking about a slightly different, but that's the best way I can think of. And I really believe in that idea as well. What I believe was Charles Wright who said it in the book. What he believed is that, well, no one cause is greater than another, because all these causes happened in tandem. You could not have one cause without another. Hence, all causes are equally remote and proximate. I don't remember which word it is. I'm going to go with proximate. Proximate? I don't know. Closer or farther away, right? Like no one cause is greater than the other, because one cause could never have happened if all the other events that made up this person's life didn't also happen. Which I thought was a very, very fascinating idea, and really circles back to the way that I view the world and I view life is all the actions that you take today will make you who you are tomorrow, and will change your actions tomorrow, even if ever so slightly. And they can build up into whatever this final action is. At the same time, one bad break could drastically change, your worldview and make all these other actions you made in the past seem remote, seem like, it isn't who you are, but that's not necessarily the case. Just because one happened sooner doesn't make it more important. Just because one affected you greater doesn't mean it outweighs every other, event that's taken place in your life. And again, they're slightly different ideas, but I really believe in them conceptually together, right? Motion starts somewhere, right? And we're going to pretend it starts with you, right? For the concept of this. And all of these movements that you're making are you throughout all of it. Just because you made one mistake back here doesn't mean that that wasn't you. Like, it was you, but all these wonderful things you do as well is also you. And you have to be able to, or I like to think, I have to be able to coincide all of this together, right? Every action I take will cause another action for me down the line. So it's beneficial for me to take a stand and make the right decisions now, whether it's eating healthy or working out or whatever. I don't do all of that all the time. But that makes me who I am. So something that then happens tomorrow, if I get an injury, right, let's say on my knee, or back when I did injure my knee, yes, it seemed like I could not have stopped this person from smacking into my knee, but maybe I could have worked out a little bit harder. I could have trained a little bit. I could have studied the play a little bit more and made a better, judgment call. It's hard, especially at the time. I would never blame myself. And even now, I don't blame myself. But there were actions I could have taken that might have changed the results. Overall, I'm going to wrap this up by asking everyone a question, because I love the end part when people ask me questions, so I always like to ask you guys questions as well. It's going to be a two-parter. The first part has nothing to do with this. It's, what do you guys think about this discussion style? It's not really a discussion, but I kind of like the idea of standing up and talking. I feel like I'm more active. I also fiddle a lot anyway, so I didn't dislike this. So I'd love you guys' feedback on that. Second, have you ever gotten to what you believed was a root cause of something? Have you got to a hard point in your life, or maybe a happy point in your life, and you thought, this event, this moment is what led it all here? And the reason I ask it like that is, technically, there had to have been something before, which is like you getting born. But what do you believe the root cause is for the person you are today? Thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys liked it, I'd Really love to hear from you guys, what you guys' thoughts. I always appreciate any comments. I love reading your guys and responding to it. Any likes, anything like that. If you guys would like to hear something specific, let me know. I'm happy to do some research, talk about whatever. I just enjoy this kind of stuff. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Thank you guys so much for watching this much longer video than I originally assumed.